Get ready for your weekly dose of informative and inspiring lifestyle content with me, your host, Brooke Monks, where we dive into ways to help you look, feel, and be your best. In this episode of Becoming Authentically You, we have world traveler Lisa Gibson sharing her biggest life lessons from her 10-month trip where she visited 37 countries around the world. She recently took a 1-year leave from her full-time job, but continued working her Epicure business from abroad while pursuing her dream of traveling the world. Keep listening to learn more about this amazing bucket list adventure. Welcome back. Lisa, again, you traveled 37 countries in 10 months, which is amazing. And we want to know, what are your biggest takeaways from that experience? Were there any sort of life lessons that you learned that you feel are really powerful that you'd like to share with us?
So I think the first is understanding myself and who I am, and what my role is in society. So that was one of the things that I, like, it's big, right?
That's really big.
Just a little lesson. So, when you leave, you think about yourself, and you think of yourself as a mother and a sister and a daughter and a worker and this and a that in terms of who you are as your identity. And then you go on this trip where you don't have that. Like, you still have it, but it's way far away in the background of things, right? And so then when you come back, you're immediately thrown back into what was, even though it's been a month and you're a different person now. Like, you've changed, right? And so you immediately have your family reacting to you, and for me anyways, I became very aware of my role in my family and who I'm expected to be, and my friends and what they're looking for from me, like what I've served the purpose of in the past.
Right.
They expect that in the future as well.
Got it.
So it's interesting because you start to understand who you are to other people. And if you have challenged yourself and played with who you are while you're traveling, have a better sense of who you want to be and who you are to your core, right? Like, what feels comfortable for you and what is uncomfortable and those kinds of things, and who you actually are. So when you start to put up some of those change pieces, like, I don't like that anymore, or I don't drink wine, or I don't do this, and they're like, what? People react to it, right? So that's one thing.
Okay.
Perspective.
Okay.
Is the other. So when you're traveling, I'm keeping in touch with things happening in Canada, what's going on. I'm hearing from the media. While I was away, there was an election. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of different things happening that you're like, because then as you're talking, I'm hearing how people don't like Trudeau and they want a new prime minister and they're counting down. And then I'm hearing from every other country that I'm in, oh, you have the cute prime minister. Or like, he's so nice, he's so this, he's so that. And they like him. So it's interesting to have that dynamic and go, well, what do you like about him? And have some different conversations. But also things like immigration. So immigration, I keep hearing about how easy it is to get into Canada, and we let everybody in. That's what Canadians think and say. That seems to be on Facebook and social media a lot. It's part of the platform of the Conservatives, different things like that. But in the people that I'm meeting who want to come to Canada, even just to visit, they can't. They can't at all, right? Because we have differing, so it's not as easy to get into Canada as people imply that it is.
Right.
So it was interesting because it caused me to do a lot of research. Like, wait a second, these things don't match. What's true? What's false? And the danger of a single story, which is a TED Talk that I've seen someone talk about. Just briefly, the single story is that you're only seeing one side of the story, and if that's the only story you know, then that's what you believe, and nothing else happens, right? So it gets dangerous.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So humanity, survival, and strength. So that was something that I saw in my visits to Auschwitz, in my visits to Rwanda, in being in Greece and seeing Syrian survivors and people who escaped Syria from the wars and things like that. So things that are actually happening today, right now, which is, goes back to the perspective. Like, we talk about these things as though they happened in the past and it's not happening today, and, it's over and done with, but it's not. Hate still exists. Fear still exists. in the world. It's happening.
Yeah.
And so to see that and to see the humanity of what causes those kinds of things, because in every single case it's fear, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then to see how people are resilient in those moments when they're going through it. But also recognizing the lack of strength that I have,
Right.
knowing that there's no way, like in Vietnam,
Yeah.
there's no way that I didn't fit into the holes. I would not be alive today.
You couldn't have escaped.
I couldn't have escaped. There's no way. So, and I go, wow, what an intelligent group of people.
Yeah.
And how resilient are they?
Yeah.
To have survived all of this, right? Yeah. And so that is powerful, the humanity and peace. And I think what I see now when I come back is sometimes a lack of empathy that then creates, partnered with fear,
right,
the hate.
Right.
The last one is privilege. So again,
big.
as it's sort of the theme throughout all of this, right? Yeah. That I've been talking about when I talk about understanding myself. Part of that is understanding what my privilege is. The privilege I have as a Canadian to travel to 37 countries, and all I had to do in most countries was pay a fee. Right. So they're not checking my background. They're not checking to see if it's okay to let me in. Mm-hmm. And that's not because I'm Canadian.
Right.
Right? So there's privilege in that.
Were you aware of this privilege before you went on this trip?
Yes, of course I'm aware, because we talk about it, and so I work in education.
Yeah, I feel, but do you think the average person is?
No, and I think that when we talk about privilege,
either.
people don't understand what it means, and I think they're offended by it. I understand better, right? Yeah. Because I understand where it comes from to some degree. So now I understand the privilege of being Canadian.
Yeah.
In the world, not in Canada.
Right.
But in the world, right?
Yeah.
When everybody is Canadian.
Yeah.
In Canada, the privilege isn't as noticeable.
Right.
Because we all have the same privilege.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
However, we don't, because there are lots of people who are not Canadian who live in Canada.
Right.
And so then we treat them differently.
Right.
And they don't have the same privilege as Canadians, right? There's an overweight privilege that I have.
Okay.
So interesting, like I'm overweight. And I love it. No.
You're beautiful. You're so gorgeous. Yeah, I don't even know why it's important to your story. Otherwise,
right, it is. Well, and I think people, like, I'm claiming this. Like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because, like, traveling again to Southeast Asia, they were clearly talking about me and talking about my weight and my height and I'm a bit like a big person kind of thing, right?
Okay.
And so there's laughter and making fun of it, and I'd have other tourists it's interesting because in some of the countries, someone actually said you're a target because you're overweight, because you're blonde, because you're white. So that means you eat. Like, again, that perception.
So you have money.
That people have. You eat. So you have money. So you have money for food. So you have money to spend.
Want to learn more about Lisa's amazing trip? You can check out her blog at alittletasteofeverywhere.com.